Can you sum up a man's life with a single podcast episode? Get ready to drop your snow globes and find out as we dive into one of the most important movies in cinema history, Citizen Kane. Does it hold up as one of the greatest movies ever made, or has its legacy been lost to time? Find out on this episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. Welcome to Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. I'm Dan.
I'm Heather.
And Heather, today we are going to watch one of the most famous movies of all time, Citizen Kane.
Yes.
What do you know about Citizen Kane?
Orson Welles. Is that right?
Or what is Orson Welles?
Is Orson Welles, I don't usually ask, but I was like racking my brain about this one. And my brain tells me that this movie was directed by and stars Orson Welles.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you, brain. I know that this movie has been described as the greatest movie of all time, although I'm not really sure what metric was used to make that determination.
Greatness.
Okay. I heard that a couple of years ago, whatever metric was used to give it that designation changed, and the greatest movie of all time was determined to be Paddington 2.
I think that was either critical reviews or Rotten Tomatoes rating or something like that.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
I haven't seen Paddington 2 either, so I can't weigh in on this. I believe that this movie has something to do with William Randolph Hearst, that there's some connection to William Randolph Hearst.
All right.
And I know Rosebud. Is that this?
Possibly.
Okay. I thought that Rosebud was a thing from this, and that Rosebud is a sled.
Okay.
I don't know why I know the things I know.
That is something. I mean, this movie is a very important film in film history, and it has been referenced and parodied to death. It's a movie that I had seen parodied so many times that when I finally did see the movie, I did know a lot about it, or at least I thought I knew a lot about it. And I did know the things that you knew as well. So it's very deep in pop culture.
Okay. Yeah, there's a GIF or GIF for those who say it that way.
Incorrectly.
Right.
You don't give people Christmas gifts.
Exactly. But I know that there is one that is from this movie, and now I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. It's like clapping, applauding. Yeah, okay. That's really all I know.
Okay.
But those are a few things.
So, okay, one of the questions I had for you was this movie has probably the most famous opening word of any movie in history. Do you know what that word is?
Is it Rosebud?
It is Rosebud.
Okay.
Okay, so Rosebud is the opening word of this movie, and I asked if you know what it references, and your answer is...
A sled.
A sled. Okay. Do you know what that means in the context of anything?
No.
Okay. You just know that the opening word is Rosebud and Rosebud is a sled.
I actually don't even know that I knew that the opening word was Rosebud until you said that it has a famous opening word. Maybe that is rattling around in my brain somewhere, but I wouldn't have necessarily come up with that on my own. So I don't exactly know what it means. That leads me to believe the fact that it's the opening word and that it's a sled leads me to believe that there's some kind of nostalgia happening. But that's not based in anything other than supposition.
Okay. You mentioned William Randolph Hearst. What do you know about William Randolph Hearst, the real life figure who inspired the movie?
Not very much. I know that he owned a newspaper. Many newspapers. Oh, he was a newspaper magnate. And he is a figure associated with yellow journalism. And he is the grandfather of Patty Hearst.
I don't know.
I know more about her because of true crime.
Oh, I know the name Patty Hearst, but
Patty
honestly,
Hearst.
I can't remember what she had anything to do with.
She was kidnapped, or she was held hostage, but then there were pictures of her robbing a bank. That's Patty Hearst, right? Yeah. And people were like, maybe she's in on this, but I think it was just a survival tactic.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay, so Citizen Kane, released in 1941, is regularly cited as the greatest film ever made. In fact, so much so that there is a lot of modern backlash against the movie, with especially younger audiences feeling like it's overrated. But it is very hard to deny how important the movie is for film history. This is not the oldest film that you've ever seen. I know that you are a big fan of the 1939 classic Wizard of Oz. Have you seen many other movies that are from before the modern era? So movies that are, before the 60s, 70s.
I have seen some older horror movies. I'm trying to remember.
Really?
Yeah. So one of my favorite horror movies actually is Freaks, which was a Todd Browning movie that came out before Dracula, I believe. I want to say that Freaks is from 1931.
Wow. Okay. That's the one. That's the Gooble Gobble one, right?
One of us. It's so good. I saw it.
Really?
I saw it at Alamo a few years ago when they were having their Graveyard Shift, which was kind of an obscure horror movie that they would show once a month. And so I didn't have a long standing relationship with that movie, but it was very good. I knew that reference as well, the Gooble Gobble One of Us, but then I really enjoyed the whole movie.
That's interesting. Okay.
I can't think of any others. There may be others.
I mean, It's a Wonderful Life.
Right. So what's the modern?
I mean, when I say modern era, like I think of the modern film era as starting in the late 1960s, early 1970s.
Yeah. So It's a Wonderful Life. That's from the 40s. White Christmas, just following that trend, is from the 50s. So, but really old movies.
The Sound of Music.
That is pre-60s. That's from the 50s, I believe. Oh, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. My favorite movie musical, problematically.
And one we are going to do
Yes.
for the podcast at some point.
Absolutely.
For me. So Citizen Kane was the first film directed by Orson Welles, who was previously known for high-profile theater and radio work, including his radio play of War of the Worlds, which he produced when he was just 23 years old.
Really?
The radio play famously was so well produced that it inspired panic among some listeners who thought that there was an actual Martian invasion happening. How widespread the panic actually was and how much of it has become exaggerated as myth over the years is still in dispute.
I knew about War of the Worlds. I've never actually listened to the radio play, but I kind of want to.
Wells was given an insane and unprecedented contract for someone who had never made a movie by RKO Pictures, granting him complete control over the movies he made for them and a crazy profit share of the movies, as long as the budget didn't go over $500,000, which in 1940 was equivalent to $600 trillion.
Oh my goodness.
It's really closer to like $11 million, but still.
Okay.
Like $11 million is a decent budget to have.
Oh, so you were exaggerating?
Yeah.
I'm so gullible.
But think of it, I mean, $11 million, like it's basically just given an $11 million check to make a movie and unproven, complete creative control, don't have to show the studio dailies, whatever you want.
Well, apparently it worked out for him.
The screenplay was written by Wells with Herman J. Mankiewicz in a somewhat acrimonious process between the two that is the subject of the David Fincher film Mank.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that.
That stars Gary Oldman as Mankiewicz. In fact, the screenplay for Citizen Kane has its own Wikipedia article because of the controversy around the process and credit over the screenplay.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to read it after we watch the movie.
The movie was nominated for several Academy Awards, but the only one that it actually won was Best Original Screenplay.
Okay.
The central character of the movie, Charles Foster Kane, played by Wells, is based on publishing magnate and real-life supervillain William Randolph Hearst, as you said, who is largely known as one of the fathers of yellow journalism, and his publishing war against Joseph Pulitzer basically resulted in modern sensationalized media. In fact, Hearst tried to block the release of this film and then completely banned any mention of it, neither criticism, advertising, or any kind of press at all within his papers, which did damage the movie financially on its original release.
Well, he is a supervillain.
So it is a somewhat satirical, somewhat honest biographical look at a publisher and a politician made during said publisher's life in 1941 after a heated production process by a young and untested 26-year-old first-time filmmaker who would also star in it. How do you think you will feel about this movie? Do you think that this will stand as one of the greatest movies of all time? Or do you think you will join the chorus of people who think it's overrated and not that big of a deal?
Well, you know that I'm very susceptible to public opinion. So I fear that I may be like, oh yeah, this is really great. Just because that's what I've heard my whole life, that Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time. But I'm intrigued by these facts that you've provided. And I think that that's going to add some interesting context as we watch this movie. So I'm hopeful that I'm going to enjoy it.
Okay, well, I guess we're about to find out.
I guess so.
3 hours and 50 minutes late, but we did it.
Tired? Tough day. A wasted day.
Wasted? You only made the paper over 4 times tonight, that's all.
I've changed the front page a little, Mr. Bernstein. That's not enough. No, there's something I've got to get into this paper besides pictures and print. I've got to make the New York Enquirer as important to New York as the gas in that light.
What are you going to do, Charlie?
Declaration of Principles. Don't smile, Jedediah. Got it all written out. Declaration of Principles.
You don't want to make any promises, Mr. Kane, you don't want to keep.
These will be kept. I'll provide the people of this city with a daily paper that will tell all the news honestly. I will also provide
That's the second sentence you've started with I.
People are going to know who's responsible. And they're going to get the truth in the Enquirer, quickly and simply and entertainingly, and no special interests are going to be allowed to interfere with that truth. I'll also provide them with a fighting and tireless champion of their rights as citizens and as human beings. Signed, Charles Foster Kane.
Can I have that, Charlie?
I'm going to print it. Solly!
Solly! Yes, Mr. Kane?
Here's an editorial, Solly. I want you to run it in a box on the front page.
This morning's front page, Mr. Kane?
That's right, Solly. That means we're going to have to remake again, doesn't it, Solly?
Yes.
You better go down and tell them.
All right.
Solly, when you're through with that, I'd like to have it back. I'd like to keep that particular piece of paper myself. I have a hunch it might turn out to be something pretty important.
Okay, so what did you think about the movie?
This might be kind of a hot take, but that movie was like really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really liked it.
It is a good movie. It is cliche, and I think there's a lot of backlash because it's known as one of the greatest movies of all time. So there's a lot of people, especially online, that say, oh, it's overrated, or, oh, it's not that good. Some of the funniest things is when you see people say, yeah, it's not really, it's like any other movie. And it's like, yeah, because all of the other movies followed Citizen Kane.
Right.
It more or less invented modern film language. So because it did so many things first, basically because Orson Welles didn't know not to break the rules because this was his first movie, and he honestly was very brash and had creative control to the point where no one could really tell him no. So he was just like, all right, let's do this. And everyone was like, oh, this makes a difference. One of your favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. and that is a Frank Capra movie.
Yes.
It's a few years later than Citizen Kane, but Frank Capra was making movies before that, so I would call them contemporaries. But It's a Wonderful Life, to me, except for a couple of shots. There's the one tracking shot when he's running through the town, but the rest of that movie, I would say, is really not a visually dynamic movie, I think is fair to say, for It's a Wonderful Life.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not really as good as you at that kind of film critique.
It feels like a modern movie in ways that I think a lot of other films from that time don't, just because they more or less invented the modern movie with this film.
Right.
So it does hold up. I think it's a simple story. It's not anything like super complex. There's no real plot twists. The sled is not really the point of the story. It's just sort of the last oh yeah. But
it's sad. It's so sad.
It is sad, but it's also, the story of the movie is just about someone who gained everything and lost everything, basically. So just the rise and fall of a very powerful individual who died very lonely because he chased everyone away. It's a very simple story, but just the film language and the way it looks, it really has aged amazingly well just because they invented the template.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't have as good of a background in just analyzing film language, but I did feel like it really held up and felt fairly timeless, I would say. And I also did think there were some cool shots. There's a shot in the mirror at one point that I thought was really cool. I think there's a scene where the camera is underneath the characters that are talking, so it's focusing upward.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second.
And there's a scene towards the end of the movie where Susan, I believe, is in the shadows and Kane is in the light. And I thought that was very cool. And I also agree that the story was pretty easy to follow, but still really compelling.
Right. And the way that they tell it with the flashbacks and everything, it's just a very, very good movie. And, I don't know if I would call it the greatest film of all time, but it's easily up there, and it gets credit for inventing the modern film.
I don't know that I believe that anything can be the greatest film of all time. I just think there's too much subjectivity and different types of movies are trying to do different kinds of things. So don't think that's a metric that you can say. It's not a scientific formula, but I do understand why this movie has been given that title. I don't think I agree that can really exist, but I see why people love this movie.
Is there a greatest Saw film in the Sawniverse? Saw 2? Saw 2 is the greatest.
Well, Saw 2 is my favorite. But see, that's the thing. I mean, there are movies that I like, but
I think you should make an objective case for why Saw 2 is the greatest.
I cannot. It has a great twist, but so do all the Saw movies.
Right.
All right, we can't go down this road. We can't go down this rabbit hole.
Rosebud was the reverse bear trap. We talked briefly about the screenplay, which I do think is great and has held up well. There was a lot of other talent behind this movie. Cinematographer Greg Toland actually approached Orson Welles and pitched himself as cinematographer for this film because Welles had never made a movie before and, according to Toland, didn't know what couldn't be done. So Toland was down for breaking the rules, essentially, and trying to get away from that very staid kind of 1930s studio look.
Okay, can you go into a little bit more detail about what that means of breaking the rules and what the rules were?
Well, a lot of it was they modified their cameras to allow more movement. So that was something that had really not been done a lot of the time. The cameras were just stuck up on a tripod and there really wasn't a lot of dynamic movement. They modified their cameras to make them much easier to move, and that just added, again, that sense of dynamic motion to the film. They invented or refined these techniques for deep focus, where you have scenes where you've got somebody way in the background who is in sharp focus, and then somebody who's in the foreground too. I'm thinking of the scene when Kane is typing the review and finishing the terrible review of Susan's opera, and he's very deep in the foreground, and Leland is coming up behind. That shot's just really cool. They had to do a lot to make that work. They had to do things like split diopter focus and just some other techniques to just open the lens up and let in a lot more light so they could focus on much more of the frame. So those were all like just brand new things that nobody really did before. They also did a lot of those low angle shots. You mentioned that. So they would build their sets raised so they could put the giant ass cameras from 1939, 1940 lower. But they also, for one of the most famous low shots after the campaign loss and that scene when it's Kane and Leland talking, that scene, I believe they just cut into the floor.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they did a lot so they could move the camera in ways that no one had really tried before. Because again, you've got this 26-year-old brash kid who thinks he's going to remake cinema. And it turns out, he did.
He was right.
The movie was also edited by Robert Wise, who went on to direct West Side Story, The Sound of Music, and Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh, okay. These are relevant to my interests.
This was also the first film that was scored by Bernard Herrmann, whose later work with Alfred Hitchcock is famous, especially North by Northwest and, of course, Psycho.
I knew I recognized the name.
I found a quote from a contemporary review in the Sarasota Herald Tribune dated May 1st, 1941.
This is where I go for all of my news.
Right.
Go on.
It is a strong piece fraught with moments of dramatic dynamite, with ironic comedy, with sharp insight. Yet the innovations are in the manner of its screening, its technical approach, its photography. Not entirely new is its flashback survey of Kane's life. Preston Sturges in The Power and the Glory, 1933, reconstructed a hero's character in somewhat similar style, beginning his screenplay with the man's funeral. There have been others less notable which played with the pattern. New and exciting, however, is the dynamic pace, the skillful camera experimentation, the ultimate impression that the lens has been relieved of taboos and made to work harder than ever before in its storytelling job. The screenplay is tight, the dialogue expert, and yet it is the camera in the summing up that has fascinated novice Welles most tellingly. Greg Toland's photography kicks over the traces. He shoots from the floor, from the ceiling, from incredible angles. He shoots straight into the light, one mustn't, and achieves effects startling and dramatic force and realism. If ever a camera did its master's bidding, however exacting, Toland's does.
I wish I had more of an appreciation for camera work and the art of filmmaking. When I watch a movie, I am admittedly more drawn to the plot, obviously,
the story.
But the story and the characters. When I'm watching something, what I might be most impressed by is really good acting, but I don't always notice the camera work. And especially in a movie like this, where some of these shots were cool, but I would have really no conception of how groundbreaking they would have been at the time, because I've seen more modern movies that, as you said, have done these things and expanded on what he did first. And so for me, it's just not as incredible as it might have been. And I feel like that's a shame.
Something else that I think is also worth mentioning is the makeup. I think the makeup, at least on Kane, is incredibly convincing. They did a really good job aging him up to the point that sometimes I forget, like, oh yeah, he's just 26.
I actually did forget that you told me that he was only 26 when the movie was made. And so at first I did forget that it was just him. When he showed up, this is so embarrassing, but when we see him as a young man, when it's not the kid, but it's, Orson Welles for the first time, but as a 20-something-year-old, I forgot. And I was like, oh, that's really good casting. And then I was like, oh, wait. wait. I remember now. It was just a split second, but yeah, I thought the makeup was really good as well.
It was really good. Leland's maybe not so much.
Not
Leland,
as
they pretty
much.
much just put a mustache and like slicked his hair back.
Yeah, but honestly, for the 40s, I feel like it could have been worse.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was terrible.
Yeah, no, but Kane, apparently it was really good. And in fact, I believe no one is credited for makeup effects because the rules were Kane would have had to credit the studio head who did nothing. The actual guy who worked on the movie was the assistant, so he wouldn't have been credited. So Orson Welles took out I believe like an ad in a paper praising the actual guy who did the work
I love that.
and just didn't give credit in the movie.
Ugh. It sucks that he wasn't credited in the actual movie, but if it wouldn't have been him anyway, I love that he did that. That's awesome.
It's a really good movie. Now, I haven't seen Wells's later work. My understanding is there is some good stuff in there. Touch of Evil is supposed to be quite good, but he never had the same creative freedom that he did for Citizen Kane. You know, because the movie really didn't find financial success until much later on. It was a very ahead of its time. And then you also had William Randolph Hearst trying as hard as he could to tank it.
You know that's just going to make people want to watch it more.
It did not, because he had a very big stranglehold on the media back then. So yeah, the movie had some success, but it really it aged well. So Wells never really had that level of creative control. Again, he went off to Europe after making some more movies throughout the 40s and 50s. And then his output was just more or less being drunk and surly and making commercials.
Sure, why
until
not?
he died. Oh, and then he was the voice of the bad guy in Transformers the movie and died while recording the lines. So Leonard Nimoy had to fill in and complete the movie for him.
Okay.
So his last performance is Omicron in Transformers the movie.
What a way to go out.
Ah, the French.
That was from a commercial?
Yeah.
Okay.
The French. He was very clearly not caring. There's also a very famous speech where he was hired to do a commercial for frozen peas, and he just goes on a rant about frozen peas.
Was he against them?
He just didn't. He just thought the copy was silly about.
Oh, okay.
And he's just ranting at the poor producers about this frozen peas copy. And the voice actor Maurice LaMarche famously used that as his warm up to do Brain from Pinky and the Brain, who is basically Orson Welles.
Oh, he did the peas rant?
Yes.
Oh.
That was his vocal warm up to get into his Orson Welles voice, which is Brain. And then the writers of the show wrote in the frozen peas rant. So you can listen to Orson Welles giving the frozen peas rant, and then you can listen to Brain from Pinky and the Brain giving the frozen peas rant.
All right, maybe one day I'll get around to that.
So any other thoughts about the movie before we get to the recap?
No, let's get to the recap.
All right. So the movie opens with the foreboding shots of Xanadu.
They call it Xanadu.
Xanadu is the castle that Charles Foster Kane built in Florida that is in decay. Then you see Charles Foster Kane himself on his deathbed holding a snow globe and the famous first word of the movie, Rosebud.
Yep.
Then he did.
Then he did.
Then it opens with a newsreel made in the contemporary style of newsreels from the 1940s about Kane's life, going over the details. This was particularly authentic because Wells actually had the RKO newsreel division edit it. So this was actually made by the real life.
That's pretty cool.
1940s newsreel division. We learn all the bullet points about Kane's life, his marriages and divorces, his rise to power and wealth, and his failed political runs. So
It was pretty long.
Yeah, and it lays out, everything. So there's more or less, the plot, the high level plot is spelled out for the viewers very early on. I love that structure because it's like there's not even really like surprises about what happened. It's really just about then we're going to color in the details of all of this, and you're going to see these people's perspective.
What I liked about it was that I felt like the story unfolded so so organically that there were things that did happen later on that I had forgotten were outlined in that original newsreel. So I didn't feel like I was waiting for things to just happen, even though I did realize that we were following those milestones. I felt like the story was happening organically enough that I was like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
The reviewer from the Sarasota Herald Tribune nailed it. It is a tight screenplay. It is very, very good. Just the way that Mankiewicz and Wells collaborated, they worked very, very well together, and it's a really good end result. The newsreel is being watched in a very dramatically lit, smoke-filled room of reporters, and that's when Jerry Thompson, the reporter — Jerry is a very good reporter name, I think. He's tasked with learning what the meaning behind Rosebud is, since Rosebud is famously Charles Foster Kane's last word.
And because they think that the newsreel is a bit sterile, I guess. It's a little boring, essentially, and they want some more human interest.
Gotta get some zazz.
Yeah. His boss, I guess, is the one telling him that he needs to go and find out what that meant so that we can maybe get a little glimpse behind the curtain of his life.
The dramatic lighting in that newsreel scene, and where most of the reporters are in silhouette and you don't really see anybody's faces, you just see the very stark light beams and the cigarette smoke playing in the light. It is a visually arresting movie, even though it's 80 years old. Jerry first goes to visit Susan Alexander Kane, a washed up singer and Citizen Kane's ex-wife. She is distraught and refuses to talk to him, so he then goes to the archives of Walter Parks Thatcher.
Everybody has 3 names.
Yeah. Thatcher's memoir is guarded like the Coca-Cola secret recipe. That is, it's got like a vault and an armed guard and a very stern secretary lady.
I was going to say that. She is laying down the law. She's like, you have to be out of here at 4:00. And then at 4:00, she is right there. Like, are you done?
And it's his memoir. So people can come and are allowed to check it out and read it, but it's not going to be published. I wonder what the deal is with that. It's just a very interesting.
Oh, I didn't even really think about that. I was just like, yeah, these old timey. I excuse a lot of things that are old because I'm like, that's probably just the way it was.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, everyone who wrote a memoir got an armed guard and a stern secretary.
No, I figured he was very important.
In a very austere room.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was very important. He was the
40s.
banker guy. He was the banker guy who controlled Kane's fortune. So, yeah.
There was a big picture of him.
Yeah, very, very big
huge.
picture. This introduces the structure of the movie. So you're learning about Kane's life from the perspective of some of the most important people in his life. And this begins the first flashback. I really like the way that this was done, where the lettering of the memoirs functions like a title card, and it sets the stage for where the flashback is going to be. Turns out that Kane's family is poor in a cabin in Colorado, and his mom was deeded some property that was supposed to be worthless until they discovered some gold on it. His mom sends Kane away to have the finest education that gold money can buy and be the ward of Thatcher, the man whose memoirs Jerry, the reporter, is reading.
Was that a thing? Is that a thing that happened?
Yes.
That people would just be sent to live with bankers?
I mean, if he agreed to it, which I guess he did.
The thing that surprised me at first in this scene was that the mother, and I know the deed was in her name, so she was the one who was in charge, but the father was like, we're not sending him away. And I was like, I didn't know that even if it was in her name, that a woman could override her husband in whatever year that was. It was like in the 1800s at that point.
Apparently she can.
Of course, he changed his tune as soon as he found out that they were going to get money.
As soon as he mentions his generous allowance, he's like, oh, all right, I think it'll be good for the boy. The mom, played by a young Agnes Moorehead, who would go on to be the mom on Bewitched, play Samantha's mom on the old sitcom Bewitched. As to, whether or not that was a thing, if you are a banker and you are coming across what might be, or what turns into at one point the 6th largest fortune in the world. Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'll also help raise this kid.
Okay, I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about what
Like, I want the business that bad.
what it would look like if that happened today. If bankers were just like adopting rich children. They go outside to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not happy.
Right. He just wants to play on his
Kane.
He wants to play on his sled.
Yeah. He doesn't want to leave his parents.
Because
he doesn't care that he's going to have the best education in the world.
How old is he? 6? Something like
no,
that.
No, I thought he was a little bit older
6
than that,
or 8,
but I'm not. Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
8. He hits Thatcher with the sled. And I don't blame him for that.
Rosebud and his rosebuds.
That's terrible.
I don't know.
He hits him in the face, so it doesn't even really.
Well, that's people call rosebuds a face.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard that.
Uh-huh. So this is from Thatcher's perspective. So after Kane leaves, Charles Foster Kane leaves to go with Thatcher to be taken on his ward, there are several flash forwards until Kane is 25 and ready to collect on his trust. He is very uninterested in all of the assets the bank has acquired in his favor, which, as I said, is the 6th largest fortune in the world. So just this poor kid from Podunk, Colorado is the 6th richest kid.
But as we'll find out
in the world.
Didn't matter in the end, but
Right.
we'll get there eventually. He is so sassy and I was loving it.
He is so sassy. But yes, he's uninterested in any of it except for a crappy newspaper, which the bank had gotten in a foreclosure because he thinks running a newspaper will be fun. that bit with the little fourth wall break and Thatcher going, he thinks it'll be fun. It's silly, but it's a fun, silly moment.
It is fun.
There's the bit where Kane is running the newspaper and he says, you provide the prose poems, I'll provide the war. That's a famous reference to an alleged quote of William Randolph Hearst, who was speaking of the Spanish-American War. He said, you provide the pictures, I'll provide the war.
Okay. Was that the war that they were talking about?
The Spanish-American War, yeah.
Okay. There's a moment, I think it's when he first is taking over the newspaper and he goes into the newspaper room and all of the employees are sitting in silence in this room. It's very quiet. And he comes in and he's kicking up a storm. And I was like, I have never seen a newspaper room in any TV show or movie that was quiet. There's always people screaming at the top of their lungs, running around, machines going off. I could not handle it.
Well, to be fair, I do think that scene, they knew he was coming because they knew that they were expecting him. So they were all sitting anxious and waiting. And also, again, remember, it was supposed to be kind of a crappy newspaper.
I guess that's true. So it's Kane and his friend, Jed Leland, and his, what is the other guy's role
Bernstein?
and name? Bernstein.
Bernstein more or less becomes his right-hand man.
Right. But what is his does he have an actual position? Is he his assistant?
I don't know.
Manservant?
If it says, I mean, he's not his manservant. He's the most faithful, executive, essentially. So around this time period when he takes over the newspaper, we don't meet about it. We don't learn about it in Thatcher's flashback, but that's when he meets Bernstein.
Oh, right. Okay. So we're still in Thatcher's flashback. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself.
I really did love the quote. The one when Thatcher is confronting him about losing money. He says, you're right. I did lose $1 million last year. I expect to lose $1 million this year. You know, Mr. Thatcher, at the rate of $1 million a year, I'll have to close this place in 60 years.
That was really funny. I loved his attitude.
I know he's incredibly charming.
He's so charming.
Young Kane is very charming. And it is sad to watch it all go, tits up and really go badly for him because in the beginning, he's full of vigor and idealism and, actually does believe in journalistic principles.
I was going to mention the idealism because what I really appreciated about him in these scenes is how he seemed to really care about poor people. That seemed to be one of his big issues of, representing what conditions were really like for the poor in the city. And I was like, I love that.
Right.
And then, of course, as time goes on, that I don't know if that goes away entirely or if it just he
you know, how much of it is lip service, how much of it is,
True.
you know, he's compromising himself, and how much of it is he does care about poor people, but he also wants to have a giant zoo mansion in Florida. So
I guess some combination of all of these things.
So there's another flash forward in Thatcher's flashback that shows that after the stock market crash, Kane had to sell his publishing empire to the bank, but they did allow him to keep some control of his papers. So we learned that late in life in, the 1930s, Kane's wealth had been dramatically reduced, and he was more or less a shadow of the powerful man that he had been.
Right.
That also has the quote, "If I hadn't been very rich, I might have been a really great man."
That's powerful.
And he has the other quote from that scene was, "I always gagged on that silver spoon."
I loved that too. Yeah. There are some really good lines.
It is a surprisingly quotable movie.
I wouldn't have guessed that before I saw it. Knowing the legacy of it, I would have thought it was more kind of an austere piece that the language might not be as accessible as it ended up being.
Right. No, it is. It's very accessible. Jerry the reporter's investigative technique appears to just be mostly asking people if they are Rosebud and then noping out when they say no. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Are you Rosebud? All
I liked Jerry.
Bye.
I thought he was funny.
But yeah, that's basically the whole of Jerry's reporter chops. Are you Rosebud? Going up to a dog on the street. Are you Rosebud? Jerry makes his way to Bernstein. Bernstein was Kane's right-hand man and probably the most loyal dude ever. He has a giant painting of Kane in his office.
Which painting do you think was bigger, the one of Thatcher or the one of Kane?
Thatcher was bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Bernstein also just seems like a chill dude. Like, I like Bernstein.
I liked him.
He's super friendly. Like, he's just like, yeah, all right, I'll do whatever.
He was very old. I was surprised that he was still alive in the present day.
He has like old face.
Yeah, I guess
He's one of those people
it.
that like he looks 50 when he's 23.
Poor those people.
Another really good quote that came out of this was, "It's no trick to make a lot of money if all you want is to make a lot of money."
I don't remember that.
It's really just, there's so many things that are just, I think, still very relevant today. Bernstein recounts his story to Jerry the reporter and flashes back to the day that Kane takes control of the Enquirer when he met Bernstein. He talks about Kane and his best friend, Jedediah Leland. They met in college. I really like the scene where they take control of the Enquirer. We talked about it a little bit before. It's funny and a little madcap, I would say. Would you say it?
Yes.
It's a little madcap?
It's madcap. It's not a romp because it's just a little scene. It's not the whole movie.
Right.
So just madcap.
Just madcap. Kane moves into the editor's office. Leland takes a stab at political cartoons before settling on being the drama critic. And Kane takes his first step into sensationalized yellow journalism, instructing his reporters to do some shady stuff to chase an interview and publish unsubstantiated rumors about a missing white woman. Funny to think that it goes back to the 19 teens or whatever, or 1890s. I don't know what year that was supposed to be.
I don't know. Maybe it is the 1890s.
They still have gas lights at that point.
I think
they don't even have like electric lights. They're using gas lights in the newsroom.
Here's my ridiculous memory for dates. I want to say that he was born in 1876. So if he's in his 20s, it's like maybe 1890s, maybe the very early 1900s.
So later on, after changing the front page multiple times, Kane drafts his Declaration of Principles, where he promises to tell the news honestly. Leland asks for the original handwritten draft as a keepsake. So this is an important watershed moment in Charles Foster Kane's life.
This is Chekhov's Declaration of Principles.
This leads to the greatest newspaper in the world scene, which is still my absolute favorite shot in the movie, and still to this day one of the coolest shots ever in a movie, honestly. Kane takes Bernstein and Leland to see the photo of the Chronicle, which is their rival newspaper, the photo of their staff. And they talk about how difficult it was for the Chronicle to put that staff together. The camera zooms in on the photograph, and that seamlessly dissolves into the same staff and the same pose. And Kane walking into the frame saying 6 years have gone by and now he got his staff. It is such a fantastic scene, such a great shot. It's propulsive. It drives the narrative in such a great way. And it has that great Bernard Herrmann score over it. And it's just punctuated by Kane being a little cocky and a little smarmy, but like in a charming, almost like Iron Man-ish kind of way. And then it's punctuated by the flash and just that little musical flourish right at the end. It is so perfectly executed. It's worth watching this movie just for that one shot, just because it is still to this day one of the coolest things ever put into a movie.
It was obviously very great, and it's the very epitome of show, don't tell. Because you learn so much in just that moment.
That then leads to the big party. After acquiring the greatest newspaper in the world staff, the party is a big bacchanalia, and there's a song written about him, about Charles
I could not
Foster Kane.
understand the lyrics to that song.
It's the Mr. Kane song. Shooting that scene with all of those extras, apparently that was a big challenge. So they had to work out a lot to do the audio and wrangle all of the extras and get them all in the shot. That was
all those
a big
scantily clad dancers.
Right. Mr. Kane. Kane goes to Europe for a while and then comes back engaged to Emily, who is the president's niece. And that is the end of Bernstein's flashback.
Who was the president in the time period that would have been happening? I mean, I know that this is all fictionalized.
I believe because you do see a Teddy Roosevelt lookalike in the newsreel. So I do believe it was supposed to be Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Jerry then goes to see Leland at a nursing home. Leland, again, does not get the good old person makeup treatment. He just looks like Leland with a mustache.
And a visor.
And
which
a visor.
May have been to hide some of the prosthetics or whatever.
Or not prosthetics.
Not prosthetics.
Leland then gives some perspective on Kane's first marriage to Emily, which more or less speedruns the beginning and waning days of their marriage. There's that montage shot where they're growing older across the table from each other at breakfast. And even though they're not moving, like you can tell that there's like an emotional distance growing. And in another really good example of show, don't tell, that scene ends with Emily pointedly and quietly reading the Chronicle. Which is the rival
I don't actually know
newspaper.
if I caught that.
Yeah, she's very, very pointedly reading the newspaper and holding it up so you see the masthead is the Chronicle.
That's great.
That scene apparently also had a makeup challenge where the makeup people, they shot it in a day and the makeup people had to run around and age them both up in between each shot and again, just do a lot of work to make that shot work. Leland then tells Jerry about Kane meeting Susan, the struggling singer with a toothache.
Poor Susan. Poor Susan just all around.
Susan offers Kane hot water to clean up his suit after a carriage got mud all over him, and she doesn't know who he is. She's kind of oblivious, even though he is becoming sort of a big muckety muck in the newspaper world at this point. He's engaged to the president's, or no, he's married to the president's niece and is a power player in New York City.
She's very young, though.
Yes, Susan is young and naive and a little silly and does not know who he is. So he becomes smitten with her. He asks her to sing for him. And she does.
Because she tells him that she wants to be a singer.
Yeah. So he asks her to sing for him. She is not a good singer. I always admire actors who have to do something badly in a movie or a TV show. And just being a good bad singer is hard. Because she's not awful. Like they're not
she's not
playing,
screeching.
She's not playing it for laughs. But like every once in a while, she just hits a note and you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not great. But you can also see, he's just absolutely smitten with her. So to him, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
It does not sound beautiful.
In their first conversation, he also asks her how old she is. And she says, I'm pretty old. I'm 22.
So Kane's governorship campaign begins. It starts very small, and you see like a very, very small rally where I think Leland is trying to get people hyped up. And then it smash cuts to that big iconic shot of him in the hall with the giant Kane poster behind him.
It's a terrible picture. That campaign picture, I was like, that is not flattering.
It's not flattering. But that him making the speech in front of that, I'm sure, did that seem familiar to you?
Yes.
It was that's one of those shots that is like the bomb shot in Doctor Strangelove. It's one of those iconic shots that's been parodied and referenced so many times. So the first time I saw this movie, I was like, oh, but I think I knew that it was going to be in this movie. I didn't have the context of it. It's more or less the turn for Kane's character, where his ego is on full display, literally in front of everyone. It's got the really cool low angle where you're looking up at Kane and making him larger than life, but then the poster behind him is even larger. It's another one of those iconic shots.
There are a couple of shots in the back half of the movie that were definitely familiar to me that I knew I had seen before. So I'm sure I'll mention it when we get to the others. Can we talk about the guy that he is attacking in this speech? Because I don't know that I fully understood.
So the current governor of New York is more or less a corrupt guy. I mean, this was in real life. New York was known for very corrupt politics at the time. And so, yeah, Kane is running on a very populist ticket and saying he's going to root at all of this corruption.
Okay.
So yeah, he's tearing into his electoral rival. This scene is more or less the only scene that features his son. The movie is very uninterested in Kane as a father. He is here briefly, has a couple of lines about dad, whatever. And then he's escorted out of the movie and killed in a car accident off screen.
Yeah. So I did remember hearing that in the newsreel about his wife and son were killed in a car accident. I think it said 2 years after his failed campaign. Spoiler, we're about to get to that. And I think if there was something, I know the movie isn't interested in it, but I guess I kind of wish that there had been some reaction to the death of his child.
Yeah. It makes sense with the structure of the movie because Jerry's not talking to anyone who really had any connection to Emily or his son.
Well, he's talking to Jed, who did seem to have some kind of a relationship with Emily. He talks about how they took dance classes together. And I would think that since he was friends with both Kane and Emily to some extent, that he would have had some time spent with their son, but I'm assuming a lot of things there, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that it is something it's a missing puzzle piece to extend the metaphor from the end of the from the end of the movie. It's one of the missing puzzle pieces from Kane's life. I don't know if it is intentional that they're just like, this is not the story we're telling, if it is because Orson Welles was a 26-year-old kid and uninterested in being a parent. And so he's just like, nah, he's a dad. It's fine, whatever. I don't know if it's also just because of the time, because it's not like rich people are known for raising their own children, even
that's true,
even now, and like back then even more so. So it's like, how involved in Junior's life is
that's
Kane
true
anyway.
But given the significance of his own childhood to the overall story, it strikes me as a missing piece.
It is
to not look at how he would feel about his young son, and his son especially, not even a daughter, like even that I could understand, but his son at presumably close to the same age that he was when he left home, and that's obviously really important to him. I would have liked that to be included. I guess I do understand why it wasn't, but to me, it's relevant.
I don't understand why it's not included other than it's a direction that the story didn't go down. I think there's probably material to mine there about how his son's death would have impacted him and maybe driven him even further away. Or maybe you could draw lines and say maybe his obsession with getting Susan the opera and everything came as a result of losing his son. Or you could say that, maybe he wasn't very close to his son in the first place. And then Emily completely kept the kid from him after their very messy, very public divorce. So there's a lot of good dramatic material to be mined there. And I don't know if it's just because
if I had to guess, my theory would be that it was Orson Welles' age that was the primary factor in not including it, because he may not have even really understood what kind of an impact having a child and losing a child would have had on a person.
Oh, a child. Oh, the French.
That's what he could have put in the movie.
Oh, the French. After the big speech, Emily tells Kane that she is going to an address, and Kane freaks out, goes with her. It turns out that the address is Susan's apartment. Kane has been seeing her. They get there, and his electoral rival, the governor of New York, is there, and he blackmails Kane. Kane refuses to buckle because his ego is just huge. The story comes out and Kane loses the election.
This was the moment where I had forgotten that we saw the newspaper headline
with singer in quotes.
Singer in quotes.
It's so brutal.
Yes.
The headlines in this movie are darkly funny. That does lead to the next thing, which is at the Inquirer, after Kane is losing, they have a choice of headlines. The first one is Kane wins, and then they're like, I guess we have to go with the other headline. And then they hold it up and it says electoral fraud.
It said fraud at polls. And I was like, oh my God.
The more things change.
Ugh, seriously.
I do have a question. They stay the same.
I do have a question about Susan, though. Were they actually having an affair, or is it accurate? Because she tells Emily that nothing happened, that he was just come and listen to her sing. I don't know if we're supposed to believe that. I'm not sure what we're supposed to believe about the relationship between them.
I would believe Susan because she seems too guileless to
at that time, yes,
to make up anything like that. And maybe, she's a good girl. I'm a good girl. I don't do that sort of thing. So that would make sense.
Great
but
Susan impression.
It would look bad.
No, yeah, it would.
And no one would believe them. So
nobody did believe them.
Yeah. Love Nest with quote singer. It's funny that you have a super wealthy guy pretending to be a populist who claims electoral fraud when he loses. It's crazy.
That's so far-fetched. That would never happen in real life.
Never. So that leads to the shot, the very famous shot where they cut into the floor and they're looking up, and the conversation between Leland and Kane. Leland is very drunk and disillusioned. He says he wants to go to Chicago. Leland is about to quit, and then Kane is like, no, fine, I'll let you go to Chicago. Kane marries Susan. He says she's going to be a huge singer, says he'll get her into the Met, and if she doesn't get into the Met, he will build her an opera house, but he says that won't be necessary. And then that cuts to the headline, Kane builds opera house. It is surprisingly funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was not expecting it to be as funny as it was, but I laughed out loud many times. And it was fun seeing it in a theater because a lot of people were reacting.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool experience.
It was. I'm glad that Alamo was showing it and we got to go. We then cut to the premiere of Susan's opera in Chicago. There are so many cool shots in this scene as well. And we do see this scene from a couple of different perspectives. The shot where the camera pans up from the stage all the way up into the rafters to see the workers giving her the PU sign It's a little silly. It's a little funny. It's great show, don't tell storytelling. It's also a special effects shot. They had to stitch together 3 different shots, including a matte painting and the shot of the stage and the shot of the workers. And it is so seamless unless you know to look for the little lines. It's just a really, really great seamless shot.
Yeah, I didn't notice the lines.
The opera is terrible, but Kane's sycophants at a Chicago paper are all giving glowing press about it, except Leland, who has drunkenly fallen asleep while writing a bad review. Kane comes in, sees what Leland started to write, and then goes ahead and finishes it the same way that Leland started it, just eviscerating Susan in this review.
The shot of him sitting at the typewriter in the dark, Kane, is a shot that I knew I had seen before.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure where, but yeah, it looked really familiar to me.
And that's the one, again, where you've got him way in the foreground and then you've got Leland way in the background, and they're both in focus, which is, again, it's still technically hard even today. So they just did so much stuff that they weren't supposed to be able to do. Leland wakes up, walks up on Kane as Kane is finishing up the review, and then he just casually fires his best friend. Leland, talking to Jerry the reporter, says that Kane's whole thing is that he just desperately wants to be loved. So you have a billionaire in control of media who desperately wants to be loved. Again, it's so weird that this is a thing that they thought would be a realistic problem in the 1940s. And it's so
crazy.
Good. It's so good that we don't have to deal with that kind of thing today.
Thank goodness.
Leland exits, probably asks 3 more people and nurses.
Jerry.
Well, Jerry exits. Leland exits. Actually, no, Leland exits.
With the 2 nurses.
Yeah, the 2 nurses
They
come,
walk him away. I honestly forgot that we were still talking to Leland. I think his flashback is the longest one.
I believe you're correct.
And so when we went back to the nursing home, I was like, oh, yeah.
And there's those really cool transition shots where they have the shadow that sort of splits the frame, and they had to do a lot of those transitions optically and manually. So it's such a visually dynamic, beautiful film. Leland exits. Jerry probably asks about 3 people on the way out if they were Rosebud. And so then now Susan is ready to talk. So Jerry goes and meets Susan at her dive bar where she does her review, I guess.
Yeah.
Susan begins her flashback.
Susan is, not only is she distressed because Kane has died, but she has a drinking problem. She is rough. So we had met her when she was very young and pretty naive.
Idealistic.
Yes. And now she is hardened.
Yeah.
And I think we see when that transition happens. But yeah, she is not in great shape.
I want to feel sorry for her because she got kind of chewed up by this machine, but also she kind of sucks. I'm not like,
I don't think that's fair.
the ego of it like really infected her in, I think, some really kind of crappy ways. She's also very stupid.
Well, she is stupid. I mean, she's not the brightest bulb.
Right.
But I feel really sorry for her. And I know we're about to get into what he does to her is cloaked as being supportive and loving.
Right.
But it is cruel.
It is like a toxic kind of love, and he's trying to give her everything that she wants, but he's doing it in a way that isn't really being responsive or receptive to her needs. So yeah, they're both toxic. I think, Charles Foster Kane is a tragic character in that he had really good intentions. And just being wealthy and power did corrupt a lot of that.
No, I think, well, let's continue on with the recap, because I do have thoughts about what happens between them.
Okay. Susan's recounting of events begins with Kane bullying her singing teacher. She is trying to take singing lessons, and the teacher is more or less telling one of the richest men on the planet, I can't do this, man. There's no amount of money that can make her a good singer. And Kane and bullies him into continuing to do it.
Honestly, when she's singing in that scene, I don't think she's a horrible singer, but she's not an opera singer.
She's not an opera singer. She's not a great singer. She's not somebody you would pay money to see.
No,
she's somebody who's like, all right, I could,
there might be a style.
If I'm next to you at church, I'm not going to cringe that much.
No, I think there might have been a style of singing that she could have done, but she's taking opera lessons.
Yeah.
And her voice is not strong enough for opera.
Nope. We see the premiere of the opera again, this time from different perspectives. I really did like revisiting that scene and the way that the movie played with that. The shot where the curtain opens and you're behind on stage and you see Susan singing into the lights. That's a really dramatic, very striking shot. We see Leland drunk and bored to tears fanning his ripped up program.
Yes.
That's very funny too.
That reminded me of when we went to see that play and we were all just passing the program around. Because it wasn't just torn up like in anger. He was playing with it. He was like, I'm shredding this carefully to give myself something to do.
This leads to the meme shot that you mentioned that you were familiar with, the one where he is standing and applauding a little too hard.
Yes.
The one that's also parodied in the Shia LaBeouf video at the end.
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf?
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf, yes. The next day, Susan has all the terrible reviews surrounding her, but she's tearing into Kane because of the review that Leland ostensibly wrote, but really Kane wrote. And she is just really just the most shrill.
She is livid.
The accent is out and you're the worst.
I wrote, wow, she's changed.
Yeah, that's the entitlement. And, if there's a thesis statement for this movie, it's power and money corrupt.
Yeah.
I think that statement about I always gagged on that silver spoon is probably the thesis statement of the movie.
Yeah, no, I guess. But I still feel really sorry. I feel sorry for him too. But I feel sorry for her because even though I do think that there is that argument to be made that marrying a rich and powerful man did change her, and I'm sure that that's true. Like I said, I think just that he's forcing her to do this now at this point. He is forcing her to continue trying to pursue the singing career that is causing her nothing but pain because her teacher is telling her that she can't sing. And now all of these reviewers, including her husband's best friend, or at least one-time best friend, she obviously doesn't know that he wrote the review, but even if it was really Jed,
she's expecting him to flex his publisher muscle and squash the bad review.
That would upset me too. I would be angry.
Really? You would be angry. You would not want to have journalistic ethics. You would just want to.
No. I don't mean that part. Like, I think that's fine. I think people should be honest. What I mean is I can understand why why her reaction is as intense as it is. Because she's in pain. She's in pain because she doesn't want this.
Yeah.
It's not going well.
It is not going well. And she is more or less the laughingstock of Chicago. And there's all the other fame and heat and attention that comes with being Charles Foster Kane's second singer wife. So yeah. And
also, I will go back to the actual review because you used the word eviscerated. And I think that's absolutely true. But I think that there's a way to write.
Might be underselling it, to be perfectly honest. He really tore into her.
And so I do think that there is a way to write a negative review that is not nasty.
And it is interesting to think that, because he did say he started it the way that Leland wrote it, but also like he knows these things to be true. So when she says she wants to quit, what's going on with him? He
can't admit that he's wrong. And I think maybe it's more than just the fact that he built her an opera house and used his influence to give her her own show, even though her singing teacher is like, she can't sing, dude. But it's also, I think, this is just my read on the situation, but it kind of goes back to the fact that his first marriage ended because of her. So he's really all in on Susan because he has to feel like he's done the right thing.
Maybe. So while Susan is tearing into him for all of the reviews, just the most shrill, terrible, Long Island.
I feel for her, but that she was hard to listen to in that scene.
She mentions that even though Kane fired Leland, he gave him a $25,000 check, which in today's money is equivalent to $50 billion.
Oh, no, you keep doing that to me and I will believe you every time because I do not understand how money works.
Well, that's not great for our finances. It's actually about $500,000 in today's money.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, $500,000 severance. Pretty good. She mentions that. And then Kane gets a letter and he opens the envelope and the ripped up check falls out. I love that so much because the movie does not underestimate the audience at all.
Right.
The movie says, he just says something about, yes, I did write him a check. And then he just shakes out the little pieces of paper. And you don't even really see like a close up. You just know that because he's referencing it, it's the check. And it is so perfectly executed. And again, it's a movie that does not underestimate its audience. And I think that is honestly rare these days. It doesn't work for if you're the kind of person who's going to watch a movie while you're on your phone, you're going to miss some details because there's a lot of show don't tell. It is endangered and definitely at risk with so many movie studios now being worried about things like engagement and watch metrics as opposed to just making something good.
Right.
So it's so refreshing to see that and that the movie doesn't spell it out and really just lets you connect those dots. And it's another point in the column of why this movie has aged so well and is held in such high esteem.
Does Leland also send the principals?
Yes. So that was the other thing, the envelope. The envelope contains the ripped up check and the original draft of the Declaration of Principles.
That's just adding insult to injury, but he deserves it.
Yeah. And Kane then tears it up. Susan keeps opening operas in a bunch of cities. The headlines for the cities get worse and worse, and the cities get less and less prestigious. I love the sellout in Detroit is in quotes, and that was in one of Kane's papers too. So like even the headline writer wasn't going that far.
Yeah,
it's a sellout. That then leads Susan, who is the laughingstock of the opera world, to attempt suicide with cough syrup. She does survive, but she tells Kane that she can't go on being the subject of public ridicule. So Kane finally hears her, relents, and lets her stop her opera career mercifully.
Thank goodness for everyone,
That's
especially the audiences.
All it took was a suicide attempt.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Susan then enters her puzzle era. They go down to the big ass castle, Xanadu, which was based on William Randolph Hearst's estate. Susan is so dumb she does not know that Florida is in the same time zone as New York. She is not a bright individual.
That's not very nice.
She's like, what time is it in New York? And he's like, it's the same time as it is now.
Well,
and then she's like, night, day?
Maybe they didn't have maps in the 40s. And she didn't know where Florida was in comparison to New York.
Kane says he wants to do a picnic. Their little picnic involves a fleet of cars and entertainers and hangers-on coming out for this picnic. God, the excessive wealth and burning of money is just crazy because they do a full-ass luau in the swamp in Florida. They get into a fight. Susan says, you don't love me. You want me to love you. And Kane slaps her.
Not cool, Kane.
Nope, not cool. Very shortly afterwards, she packs her stuff and leaves him. And that...
honestly, good for her.
Yeah. No,
that's brave.
Yeah. She seems well taken care of. She's got a restaurant and or bar,
true.
I guess, or whatever. And I assume the divorce settlement was decent. Jerry finishes up his interview. He says he feels kind of sorry for Kane, and Susan responds, don't you think I do? So Jerry then goes to talk to the house manager of Xanadu, the suspiciously accented man, who mentions that Kane freaked out and smashed up the place after she left. So it's nice that they kind of pick back up right after Susan's and we get kind of the other perspective of the help watching Kane just freak out.
I mean, he does destroy her room.
Apparently, he hurt himself shooting that because he was like going nuts, wrecking all the props and everything, and actually like legitimately hurt himself.
Honestly, that doesn't surprise me because it was violent.
Mm-hmm. And he found the snow globe, which is the snow globe that he was clutching at his death. Jerry gives up, says that he didn't really learn anything. There's a team of reporters kind of going over everything, and there's some inventory people inventorying all the junk in the house.
I mean, everything in the house. Just a lot of it is junk, but they're inventorying everything.
The movie starts to wrap up. I love too that we see things that were relevant to the characters in the movie just kind of being inventoried and wandering through. So it's just also a really nice touch to see those elements and things from the flashbacks come back in. Jerry's quote says, "Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it, and you can't explain a man's life with a single word." So Jerry and the other reporters exit, and it zooms out to the massive piles of crap that Kane had acquired over the years, being a poor kid that made him a pack rat. And you see some workers grab his childhood sled and throw it in a furnace. And that's Rosebud.
Yes.
One more iconic shot, seeing the sled burn in the furnace and having the name come into view. And the end.
Yep.
That's Citizen Kane.
Actually, I think after we see the sled in the fire, the camera does show us the outside of Xanadu again, because I did really like the symmetry of the opening and closing where we're seeing it, but now it just has a totally new perspective.
Charles Foster Kane ultimately was just this 8-year-old kid from Colorado who desperately wanted to be loved and didn't really have the tools or the means. Well, he had the means, but he didn't have the emotional
emotional means.
He didn't have the emotional means to really get what he needed.
Yeah.
And it's just a tragedy.
Yeah.
And he died alone, a once wealthy, powerful man who was pining for his childhood sled.
Yeah.
And his simpler times. So, closing thoughts?
Well, I will say I was a little surprised, I guess, that I thought they were going to find the sled. When we find out that they're there and they're inventorying everything. And I think they even mentioned that there are some things they're like, oh, there's some things over there from his childhood. I was like, oh, they're going to find the sled. And then, of course, they don't. They throw it in the fire. And I actually really like that that's the case because
nobody in that world knows the truth about Rosebud, but we, the audience, get the answer.
But I do think that it sort of underscores Jerry's point about a single word doesn't sum up what the quote exactly was. Because in a sense, Rosebud does explain everything, but it also doesn't explain everything.
Yeah.
So it's enough to know that he was thinking back to where it all began and maybe where things started to go wrong when he entered this life of riches and luxury, and that's where all of his problems started. But there's just so many things that happen to a person over the course of their life that, missing one or thinking about one childhood relic is not the whole story. I think ultimately I'm glad that they didn't find the sled because that's sort of a letdown of a mystery for them, for the characters, not for us. I think for us, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I see. But I have heard in world,
people do joke about it's a sled.
I mean, it's not the whole story, but it's enough to see the whole story, I think.
It's definitely a MacGuffin from the Alfred Hitchcock use of the term, and that it's something that is driving the plot, but it's not really what the movie's about.
Yeah. So I think it would have been, in world, it would have been a disappointing discovery. But I think that for us...
Charles Foster Kane's final word, crappy sled.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, no, I'm glad they didn't find it. And then it's just burned up.
Yep.
It's gone.
And you see the
like
smoke
his life.
in the final shot. You see the smoke coming out of the chimney at Xanadu.
It was good.
It's a good movie.
It was a good movie.
It is, yeah. Again, I think it is unfairly maligned because it became so cliche and it tops so many best of ever lists. Because if you have to choose one, you can make a very good case for it being the best movie ever made, at least the best Western movie ever made, right? So yeah, there's a lot of, oh, it's not that great, or yeah, it's overrated and blah, blah, blah. But I think its reputation is well deserved. It is a fantastically well-made movie. It is a very tight script, just very, very well written. It hits all points. It's got, big drama. It's got humor. It's got good characters. It's got a really interesting hook. So it is ultimately what you want from a movie, which is a good story, well told, and done so in a way that is wholly unique to the medium. This would not work as a play. It would not work as, a television show or a novel or whatever. It is wholly unique to cinema. I sound so pretentious saying this, but like that's the point. Like, a good movie should be a good movie.
Right.
And it absolutely is. It is just a very, very, very good movie. And ultimately, what more do you want?
Yeah. No, for sure. I definitely see your point. I don't think that I would say that it's overrated, because I did find it to be really compelling and visually interesting, even for someone who is not as well versed in, film language as I've said a couple of times. So I don't think it's overrated. I stand by my earlier point that I don't know that you can say that any movie is the greatest movie ever made, because there's just too many factors. And, even to get into things like, this is from early filmmaking days, and it is a story about a straight white man, which was the only kind of story that was really being told.
Right.
And was for a long time seen as the default. And so when you compare it against other stories in the same ilk, I can see why it is considered to be maybe a step above or, better than a lot of the others. But like, there are other stories to be told. So, I just am like, there's other things that we have to consider when we're talking about storytelling and filmmaking and things like that. But I really enjoyed it, and I see why it is a classic for sure.
Well, on that note, thanks for listening with us, and we will catch you on the next episode. I'm Dan.
I'm Heather.
And this has been Blind Spots and Second Thoughts.